Hello again and welcome to another Morning Glory Old World video. In today's episode, we shall be casting our ever critical eye over another Empire core choice. In our last episode, we had a cheeky gander at the Free Company militia, and we're going to be going further into the irregular forces today by going over the Empire archers. Whilst they might not be as flashy as handgunners, I believe archers are going to form a vital part of the Empire infantry corps. They're hypermobile and bold statement incoming, guys. They might just be a A-tier unit. They might be essential for victory on the battlefield. I know. Well, with a statement like that made, there's only one thing for us to do. Let's summon the elect accounts and charge right into today's episode. As is tradition, let us begin with a brief overview of what the hell this unit actually is. Whilst the professional state troops have superseded their bows with crossbows and handguns, archers are still a very common sight on the battlefield. Whilst they may seem like another ragtag militia unit, archers tend to be made up of some very hardy individuals. Their ranks often consist of full-time hunters. Sure, they may not have the discipline to form a perfect firing line like the state troops, but archers are independently minded and used to traversing difficult ground to get to their prey. Because of this, they make excellent scouts, and it is a foolhardy general who dismisses the utility that archers can bring to the battlefield. Of course, that's the fluff, but how does all of this translate to the tabletop? What's the crunch? Well, let's start off by going through their stat line. On the surface, your archers have a very human profile, pretty much the same as every other troop we've looked at so far. They've got movement 4, weapon skill 3, ballistic skill 3, strength 3, toughness 3, 1 wound, initiative 3, attacks 1. Interestingly, they have leadership 7, which makes them as disciplined as your state troops. I guess that's there to represent that grizzled mindset of the guys who are used to living it rough in the forests and mountains, hunting down things like elk, wolves, and maybe bears as well, with nothing but their bow to protect them. You can upgrade one archer to be a marksman. This acts as the unit's champion, and he comes with ballistic skill 4, otherwise his stats are the same. As for their other rules, Empire archers are regular infantry. They have a base size of 25 by 25 mil, but their unit size starts as 5+. Now, most units have to be 10+ in the Empire, and they only get to be 5+ if you take them as a detachment. Empire archers are a 5+ unit strength, whether you are taking them as a big unit or as a detachment. They come equipped with hand weapons and warbows. Warbows have got a 24-inch range. Their strength is user, so in this case 3. They have no AP, but they do have volley fire. Most factions don't really think much of warbows. They're very much the baseline range weapon. But in the Empire, they're unique. Your crossbows and handguns are they're more powerful, but they are ponderous. So if you move and shoot with them, they suffer a -2 movement penalty. Your warbows don't have that rule. So they're still going to suffer a -1 if they move and shoot, but that makes them quite mobile in comparison to the rest of your ranged troopers. Sadly, there aren't any equipment options for the archers. You can upgrade one guy to a marksman, but unlike in the state troops where you can then start taking all sorts of crazy things like repeater handguns, you don't get any of that here. If you take an Empire archer as a marksman, the only advantage you're getting is that extra ballistic skill. Is it worth it? It's 5 points. Maybe it's worth it. I probably, for the sake of just like ease of rolling dice, I probably wouldn't bother. I know it sounds crazy, but when you're rolling so many dice and you're managing quite a lot, and with Old World being quite a complex game, I think that you'll probably forget that there's a marksman in there, and you'll probably forget to take advantage of the ballistic skill 4. So I wouldn't be too worried about taking the marksman champion. The good thing about the extra ballistic skill, though, is it doesn't make you, if you are going to move and shoot them, less susceptible to that. But it's 5 points, and Empire archers are coming in at 7 points a man. So if you take a marksman, that's going to be one of your guys costing 12 points. Personally, I'd probably leave the marksman at home, keep them cheap, keep them cheerful, and just keep them simple. Now, you might not be able to give them any extra weapons, but you can stack a crap load of special rules onto your archers. And there are 2 options you've got here. You can take both on a unit if you want to, and each one of these options is going to cost you 1 point per man. The first one is Fire and Flee. A unit with this special rule that is also armed with missile weapons may declare that it will fire and flee as a charge reaction. If a unit with a special rule is armed with missile weapons and could draw a line of sight to the charging unit, it may declare that it will fire and flee. The unit will stand and shoot before turning tail and fleeing from the charge. However, due to the time spent shooting at the discarding foe, when making its flee roll, the unit rolls 2d6 and discards the lowest result. If both dice roll the same result, discard either. Note that if the distance between this unit and the charging unit is less than the movement characteristic of the charging unit, that unit must either hold or flee. This is a real doozy, and I like it because it has the potential to really mess up your opponent, but it also has potential to turn around and bite you in the ass. So the reason it's nice is because if someone's going for like a long bomb charge on you, and you're like, you know what, I'm just going to do a cheeky fire and flee. Pew, pew. You fire a few arrows at them, and then you just run away. You run away, and that might mean that they fail their charge. It might mean that they physically can't make it to you if you flee far enough. You might just completely get out of dodge. So is a great way of protecting your archers whilst also messing with your opponent. If they fail their charge, it might mean that next turn you can get a charge on them. And so Fire and Flee has all sorts of deep tactical ways of being used, and is perfect for units like archers, which, as you'll see later on, are going to be roving out ahead of the army. They're probably going to be the ones that get first into contact, and so being able to disrupt your opponent, act as chaff, and not even have the goddamn common courtesy to let them charge you and brush you aside your archers as if they were matchsticks. These guys are going to be really annoying for armies that rely on charging, like Bretonnians. If you can try and force, especially if they've got like impetuous units like errant knights, you might force them to do charges which they can't make, and then you just twang and get out of there, and then you countercharge them. It's also going to be really annoying for those armies that don't charge very far, those slow moving armies like dwarves. Dwarves may, they're probably just going to shoot you to death, to be fair, but there's going to be that time when the dwarf players will be like, okay, I'm just going to charge these archers, they're annoying me, they're going after my cannons, they're doing all sorts of just shenanigans, I'm going to charge them, and you go, didn't say the magic word, fire and flee, launch a few volleys. If you're lucky, you'll kill one. If you don't really care, get out of there. And the dwarf player's like, damn, I'm out of position now. And then again, you can countercharge them. So it is really, really nice. But it is a big but, and I cannot lie. If you flee and the enemy catches you, you die. You're gone. You're goners, mate. So it's definitely a double-edged sword. It's not like, oh, I fled, oh, they caught me, oh, now I'm going to reform and start, like, you know, actually having a fight. Like, it's no, you chose to flee. If they catch you, you get run down. So it's tricky. And so there are going to be times when, especially if you go against someone who can make some really ridiculously long charges, like they've got swift stride and impetuous and a long base movement and everything, sometimes you just won't be able to get out of there. Also, there is a chance that if you flee, the enemy may be able to redirect the charge into another unit. So your archers might be like, see you later, shitlords! Whilst the state troops behind them are like, you fuckers, now we're going to have to deal with this. So it's a good rule, but it's going to take some savvy players to get the most out of it. You can also upgrade your archers to be scouts. Units with this special rule may be deployed after all other units from both armies. They can be deployed anywhere on the battlefield that is more than 12 inches from an enemy model. If deployed in this way, scouts cannot declare a charge during their first turn. If both armies contain scouts, a roll-off should determine which player deploys scouts first. The players then alternate deploying their scouting units one at a time, starting with the player who won the roll-off. This is a brilliant rule, and one that can be supremely powerful in the old world, depending on who you're going against. Old world deployment zones tend to be quite large, and also you can deploy quite far forward. There are some maps where players can start 12 inches away from each other, and I guess it's just a case of, I really hope I get turn 1 so I can get some charges off. So there's a lot of potential for there to be gaps in your opponent's deployment zone. And you don't need to take a big unit of scouts. 5 might get the job done. And if you take a unit of your archers and then you scout them so they're in the back corner of your opponents, this is going to give you two strategic bonuses, 2 options for you to take advantage of. First one is you're behind enemy lines. This means you might be able to get to those vulnerable units like war machines. They may have big guns, but cannons have only got a crew of 3, so if you start plinking away at them, they're going to start dying. Also, this isn't 40k, so if you're behind the enemy, it can be an absolute ball ache for them to turn around and deal with you if they don't have things like fast cavalry. On top of this, you're behind them. So if your line starts marching up and your opponent goes, oh, it's only 5 scouts, I'm not going to worry about it, and you go, oh, my sweet summer child, and then when the lines clash, you send your archers into their rear ranks. If they're like regular infantry, 5 archers just go in there and disrupt the entire thing, and that enemy unit is in a very, very difficult position. So just being behind the enemy is going to be very tasty. It also means if you get behind the enemy, or even just near the enemy, it's going to make their marches difficult. You cannot march in Old World without... well, that's not true. You can march in Old World if someone is within 8 inches of you, but you have to pass a leadership test. And that can be dicey. That can go either way. There's a lot of units out there which are leadership 6, leadership 7. It's like 50-50 whether they make it or not. And if they don't make it, then you're screwing their movement up, and movement wins games. The ultimate mantra of almost any Warhammer system, movement wins games. So being able to, whether you get behind the enemy, flank them, whatever, it doesn't matter. If you can scout forward and just start causing them to slow down and fail marches, that's going to, again, be very frustrating for your opponent to deal with. And this is the big thing about scouts and about archers, which is they are not meant to do a huge amount of damage to your opponent. What they're meant to do is be so annoying and that they draw down on themselves undue attention. You know, your opponent gets so frustrated with these 5 scouts, just like flinging, like casually, just like flinging archers into the war machine. All of the archers are like having a competition. Who can get the engineer on the war machine? You know, they're all just firing some arrows from the forest. He gets so annoyed that what he does is he turns around, it's like 20 longbowmen and goes, and just like fires 20 longbows into you. Like, okay, brilliant. So now you have taken a unit that should really have been peppering up my state troops, my great swords, my cavalry, and instead you've been forced to use them to shoot my archers because you were going to lose your trebuchet. So archers, scouts, all this kind of stuff, fire and flee, if you notice, their weapons aren't very powerful. But it's not the damage that they do, which is where they shine. It's how they disrupt and keep your opponent off balance. It's how you measure their worth. Out of these 2 rules, and bear in mind you can take both, but out of these 2 rules, I prefer scouts. But I'm not saying fire and flee is bad. What I'm saying is I'm an ogre who's got a smooth brain, and I can get my head around scouts and I can understand how I'm going to use that a lot easier. It feels much more take all comers to me. Whereas Fire and Flee, I fully understand could be an intensely powerful rule in the hands of an experienced veteran player. So both of them have their place. I just think that Scouts is a bit more take all comers and Fire and Flee is something that's slightly more specialized. Finally, we get to their special rules, and they've got a whole host of them. Firstly, they are a detachment unit, but they are not a regimental unit. This means you can still take them as non-detachment. You can just take Empire Archers as their own thing. Long story short, they can be a detachment, but they can't have any detachments themselves. They also have move through cover. Models with a special rule do not suffer any modifiers to their movement characteristic for moving through difficult or dangerous terrain. In addition, a model with the special rule may reroll any rolls of 1 when making dangerous terrain tests. This just feeds into this idea that they're a forward unit that's going to be operating on the flanks. Often you'll probably find that there is more terrain on the flanks, whereas the middle of the board will be more open where the battle lines can crash. So having moved through cover means that these guys stay mobile and can just take advantage of the terrain. Archers are also a vanguard unit. At a deployment, units with a special rule may make a vanguard move. A unit making a vanguard move moves as described in the basic movement rules. It may maneuver normally but cannot march. If both armies contain vanguard units, a roll-off determines who moves first. The players then alternate moving their vanguard units one at a time, starting with the player who won the roll-off. Vanguard and Scout is an incredible pairing of rules. Scouts allow you to get into position, and Vanguard is going to allow you to use that ability defensively and also offensively. Perhaps you scout forward and then you don't get the first turn. Okay, well, I'm going to use my Vanguard move to move my unit somewhere safe. Maybe just move it 4 inches back, maybe put it 4 inches side so it's out of an arc, maybe put it behind some terrain. I'm just going to have my unit of archers so it's forward, but it ain't just going to get picked up in a turn 1 charge. Or you can use it aggressively. Perhaps you have scouted your unit forward, you've put it behind some Lancer blocking terrain already, and you think, okay, well, I'll Vanguard out, and then I'll be in a cool position, and now I'm going to start shooting. And because my move was done in the Vanguard stage, and not as my actual movement, I'm not going to suffer the -1 for moving and shooting. It's brilliant. Or perhaps like, well, I'm going to Vanguard move, and then I'm going to move, and then I'm going to shoot. It's really tasty. One thing to mention, you can't use Vanguard and Scout to make like super easy charges, because if you Scout, you can't charge. You could Vanguard move and then go for a charge, but you wouldn't be able to Scout Vanguard charge. So, but not that you're really going to want the charge of the Archers, to be fair. That's more for other factions that might have Scouts and Vanguards who are actually decent in melee. But yeah, being able to get like a pre-game move and an infiltrate is just it's really good. The last special rule that Empire Archers have is skirmishers. This is a very complex rule. If you look at the big blue book, it has about 4 pages dedicated to it. I'm gonna do a separate video on skirmishers because they are a really important unit and many armies can take advantage of them. It's not just Empire Archers which can skirmish. However, I don't want to leave you hanging, so I'm going to give you a brief overview of skirmishers. They work like a 40k unit. They deploy in a loose formation, they're not ranked up, and they stay 1 inch apart from each other. And the advantage for that is they get loads of maneuverability things, like they can do as many reforms as they want. They're kind of like old school fast cav if you've played previous editions of Warhammer. So loose formation, highly maneuverable. When they get into combat, they then form into ranks, but they don't really get very many bonuses for being in ranks because they're not used to fighting shoulder to shoulder. Skirmishers, the whole point of the rule is to make you very, very flexible, loosey-goosey. So if you're learning the game for the first time, if you're coming over from something like Bot Action or Warhammer 40k. Just think of your skirmishers. They're almost the rules you'll be most familiar with in many ways. But obviously, being the old world, there's loads of little nuances to how they work and how you can rank them up and reactions and all that kind of stuff. But loose formation, very good on the move. Overall, Empire Archers are a vital component of your war machine. They will be essential for hunting down war machines, dealing with enemy chaff, whilst at the same time being their own chaff and speed bump units. They are great scouts, great at vanguarding, and they've got lots of shenanigans and tricks that can make for a very fun unit to use. There's a lot of interactivity there. Their damage might not be great, but that is not how they help you win. They help you win by just keeping your opponent off balance and never allowing him to have the battle go the way it wants it to. At least, that's what I think. But of course, all of this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Do you like Empire Archers? Do you go for Fire and Flee or the Scout Special Rule? Or are you like, no bows for me. I want gun and I want crossbow. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to smash that like button and also subscribe to never miss an episode. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian Glory Hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing. Truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members. So thank you guys so much. And last, but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, and they have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a big shout out to Bon Vert, Mad Larkin, Marcus Roberts, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Varney. Thank you guys so much. Your incredible generosity is a massive part of how I'm able to do Mordian Glory full time, and it is a big driving force behind the channel. But I hope you all enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching, and of course, as always, see you guys next time.